My name is John Sampier. I was born here in Rogers in January 24th, 1947, and have spent my entire life here. My father, J. Wesley Sampier, my mother, Dorothy, I don't remember exactly when they moved here, but my dad was an attorney, and previous to that, or becoming an attorney, he taught or was principal or coached at Pea Ridge, Garfield, Lowell. So he spent some time as an educator, but he became an attorney. He also was elected a state representative and then elected a state senator, and so he was active in politics. He was city attorney for several years here in Rogers as well. My mother didn't work when I was in grade school, but after that she went to work and retired, ultimately working at the Rogers Hardware in downtown Rogers for Dick and Margaret Bean. It was a hardware store that was hardware and gifts like plates and appliances and that kind of thing. And then they had a mezzanine which had an incredible, it was the toy department. And it was such that people in the region would come to shop there. There wasn't another toy department quite like it. So she became the toy lady. And that's where she worked until she finally retired. And then I had an older brother, half brother actually. He's 9 years older than I am. He was from my mother's first marriage. Her marriage to my dad was her second marriage. And my brother's name was John Freshour, his legal name. She was married to Manly Freshour. And so his name was John Freshour, Jon. Interesting, when I went to his office in Washington, D.C., for the first time, and he was introducing me to his staff, and he said, "This is my brother John." And one of the ladies kind of twisted him and said, "Well, your mother was real creative with names, wasn't she? This is John, my brother John." But that constituted my family. There aren't a lot of Sampiers, but Danny, we called him Danny locally. That was his middle name. So he was my older brother, and then my mom and dad.
So, what was it like growing up as a kid in Rogers? What'd you do when you were young?
Well, I've done this before. I was invited by an English teacher to the high school to speak to her senior English class, one of them. And I said, "Well, I would, but what about?" She said, "Well, they just begun reading To Kill a Mockingbird." And she said, "We're just at the point where Scout, the main character, was talking about growing up in Georgia, or whichever southern state it was, in the 30s. And she thought it might be interesting if I talked to them about what it was like growing up in Rogers in basically the 50s and the early 60s. And I went out to do that. And as I told them, it was an innocent time, really, for kids. I mean, we all lived under the Cold War threat of nuclear annihilation. Remember the duck and cover drills at the school where a wooden desk was going to keep us from being blown away by a nuclear holocaust. Anyway, that really didn't enter our minds much. Because Rogers was much smaller at the time. The earliest population I remember was 5,222. The friends I had from my earliest memory were still my friends when we graduated from high school. There was wherever we lived was when we were kids was where we lived when we graduated from high school. There wasn't a lot of intermovement. Most families were like ours, middle class. The father worked, there's one car in the family, a decent home, those sort of things. Whether it was professional like my father or whatever, we were all in the same boat, so to speak. So we established lifelong friendships. And as a kid, we'd leave in the summer vacation, we'd leave in the morning on our bicycles, wouldn't come home till dark, and our parents didn't really tell them where we were going. We just went around, played, went around town, went to different places. And no one thought a thing about it. Now, of course, we knew that there were people around town who knew us, and if something happened, they'd tell our parents, or they kind of kept track of us. But basically, freedom. It was an innocent time, and there was so much freedom. Halloween is another example. No one had parents accompanying them on Halloween, and we'd go all over town till we couldn't walk anymore. just me by yourself or with a friend or friends, you just didn't worry about it. In the summers, in summer vacation when I was junior high, I'd fish nearly every day down at Lake Atlanta. We lived at 9th and Maple, and sometimes Mom would take me down there if she was going to work, and if not, I'd walk. Probably no one's fished Lake Atlanta in their lifetime more than I have. So I fished down there a lot, and basically, there weren't any other kids that did that, and on a day-to-day basis, there were 3 or 4 older gentlemen who I always kind of said they couldn't work. They were stove up, as they say, but they could go down and fish every day and haul a boat in and out of the water. And I know they kind of kept an eye on me. Some may have considered them ne'er-do-wells, but I don't think they were, and they respected me and I respected them, and so they kind of kept an eye on me. All of the...
Give me just 1 second.
Oh, the fan. Do we need to start over?
I think we'll be okay. I mean, we can, but...
No, whatever you want to do.
I think it's mild. I can get it out, but
okay.
It'll be better from here if we go.
Sure.
So we were talking about growing up in Rogers.
Yes.
At a different time.
Yes, it was. As I say, there was so much freedom, and another interesting thing I've said, riding our bicycles. Nobody wore a helmet or padding. You'd have been laughed out of town. I don't know if those things even existed then. And I don't remember anyone getting hurt on their bicycle. Just like I don't remember anyone shooting their eye out with a BB gun, falling and breaking their neck. I don't think anyone ever did that. But the amount of freedom, and we'd play till dark or after dark, and summer and winter. Seemed like there were a lot more snowstorms in the winter too, and we'd build forts and snowmen and have snowball fights or go sledding when we were older. Just that kind of freedom, I guess, and peace. You just didn't worry about anything particularly. Christmas was a special time. It always is, but downtown Rogers was the business. There were motels, few restaurants, gas stations on the periphery, but downtown Rogers was the business community. And it was so pretty during the winter, during Christmas season, be decorated, and it was exciting to be down there at Christmas and do all of those things that just became traditions. And it just seemed like it was, of course, it was great for me because my mother ran the toy department. So I had first shot at whatever the new toys were, I guess. And we remained friends, all of us, through junior high and high school. And, well, still to this day, a lot of us, of course, most live somewhere else or are deceased. But there's a lot of us that grew up here that came back. When we were graduating from high school back in 1965, most of us that were going to college realized or thought, maybe we didn't express it, that whatever we were going to do, we were going to have to do it somewhere else. There just weren't that many job opportunities in Rogers, unless your father owned a business or something like that. And so many of them left. I came back, but many of them left. But a lot of them have come back over the years, because, of course, the opportunities here now are considerably different than they were then.
So talk about what it was like going to Rogers High School or school in Rogers, and then what you did afterwards.
Sure. At the time, the way it was set up was first through 6 was elementary school. I went to what at the time was called, it's Lingle School now. It was Central Ward at the time. Then the junior high was at what was called the old high school. It had been the junior high and high school previous to 1964, when the new high school opened. But it was a 3-story building on Walnut Street between 4th and 5th. It's gone now. And so after you finished the 9th grade, you went to the new high school, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And the new high school was kind of interesting. I was talking with someone the other day about it. It was built in such a way that there were no hallways. All of the classrooms, you entered from an outside door. which seemed odd in a climate like ours in the winter. But because there's no air conditioning at the time either. But that's where we went to high school, and 10th, 11th, and 12th. I was small in stature and didn't, because I didn't think I could, get involved in athletics. I played Little League Baseball, never very good at it, but I played Little League Baseball, that was it. And I guess I compensated for it by getting involved in government and drama in plays. And I would run for office each year for something, and usually opposed by my lifelong friend David Swearingen. David would win one year and I'd win the next year, and he'd win. Well, it culminated in run for student body president for our senior year, and I won. So I was student body president my senior year, and still most of those people that were involved in, the representatives and so on, we've remained friends over the years. To say the friends that I had in grade school were still my friends in high school. The campus, because of the way it was laid out, you visited mostly outside. Also, anathema to today, there was the smoking tree. A number of students smoked, and there was a tree out on the campus where it was tolerated that they would go out there and smoke. Remember, one of my campaign promises when I ran for student body president was, I'm going to get a Coke machine by the student council office, to resounding cheers. And I was able to do it, so I felt good about being able to deliver on that promise. We had a student council bookstore, little room where students could buy pencils and paper and various types of supplies, and I think we had a few snacks.